Welcome to another deep dive. We've got a ton of research and articles today all about the future of work.
Yeah, there's a lot to go over.
It seems like everyone's talking about AI and automation these days and what it means for jobs.
Definitely a hot topic. And I think, a lot of the anxiety stems from
Oh, yeah.
this prediction that by 2025, 85 million jobs could be displaced.
85 million. That's,
Yeah, the World Economic Forum put out that number.
wow, that is a lot of
It
jobs.
is.
But then they also talk about, 97 million new jobs being created.
Right.
So is it all just, a wash? Are we just trading in our old jobs for something better?
Well, one of the sources you sent from McKinsey actually pushes back on that a little bit.
Oh,
They
right.
say, yeah, new jobs will be created, but the transition
Right.
won't be so simple.
Okay.
A lot of workers are going to need to, really upskill or even switch fields entirely.
Oh, wow.
It's not just about robots replacing us.
Okay.
It's about the skills that are valued in the economy fundamentally changing.
So it's not so much robots stealing our jobs as it is like robots changing the rules of the game.
Exactly.
And we need to figure out the new rules if we want to keep playing.
Yeah,
And speaking of new rules, there's all this talk about soft skills being super important now.
right.
One article even called them the new hard skills, which I thought was interesting.
It's true, though, in a world where AI can handle, all these routine tasks,
Yeah.
what really sets humans apart are things like critical thinking and emotional intelligence and just that ability to adapt to new situations.
So it's not enough to just be, you know, technically skilled anymore.
Right.
You need to be able to think critically, manage your emotions, and just kind of roll with the punches.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's break down those soft skills a little bit
Sure.
because we've got critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and adaptability.
hmm
I guess first, critical thinking. Why is that suddenly such a big deal?
Well, one of the reports you sent from the Pew Research Center
Right.
highlighted how much misinformation is out there.
Yeah, it's everywhere these days.
And just the sheer volume of data we're all dealing with now.
Right, information overload.
It is. And they argued that critical thinking is essential not just for, spotting fake news,
Okay.
but for being able to analyze information from different sources,
Yeah.
identify biases,
Yeah,
and ultimately form your own informed conclusions.
that makes a lot of sense because it's so easy to just get swept away by, the loudest voices or the most sensational headlines.
Yeah.
We need to be able to actually think for ourselves, not just blindly believe everything we see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess that applies to the workplace too, right? It's
Yeah.
not just about like personal beliefs, but
Yeah, definitely.
how you approach problems at work.
Yeah. All your sources really emphasize how problem solving, creative thinking, approaching challenges from different angles,
Right.
all of those are super valuable no matter what industry you're in.
So critical thinking is kind of like that mental Swiss Army knife we all need in our back pocket these days. Okay, so critical thinking, check. But what about emotional intelligence? I always thought that was something you're either born with or you're not. Like some people are just naturally good at reading others.
Yeah, that's a pretty common misconception, but one
Titan.
of the articles actually from the Harvard Business Review
Okay.
argued that emotional intelligence can be learned
Oh, really?
and developed over time. And they said it's especially important now as we move towards,
Yeah.
more collaborative and team-based workplaces.
So even if AI is handling more of the tasks,
Right.
we still need to be able to like work together effectively.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what does emotional intelligence actually look like in practice?
Well, it's about self-awareness,
Okay.
understanding your own emotions and how those emotions impact your behavior. And it's also about empathy.
So being able to kind of sense what other people are feeling?
Yeah, understanding the emotions of others
Gotcha.
and then using that understanding to communicate effectively. Build stronger relationships, navigate, tricky social situations.
So it's not just about being nice or whatever. It's
In my
about
kind.
understanding how people work and using that to your advantage.
Exactly. And, that's something AI, at least for now, can't really replicate.
Okay, so we've got critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and the third one on our list of superpowers for the future of work was adaptability.
Right.
And it sounds like it's not just about being open to change,
It's deeper than that.
but it's about, having the resilience to bounce back from setbacks,
Yeah. And that willingness to constantly learn and evolve.
which is probably good advice for life in general, not just work.
Definitely.
But why is adaptability so crucial right now in the context of the future of work?
Well, think about it. The pace of technological advancement, it's only accelerating, right? The
Yeah.
skills that are in high demand today could be obsolete tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And jobs are constantly being created and disappearing.
It's like we're all on a roller coaster that's constantly changing direction.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And if you don't hold on tight, you're going to get thrown off.
And if you can adapt, learn quickly, embrace that change instead of being afraid of it,
Yeah.
that's what will keep you on the ride.
This is all starting to make
That's
sense.
good.
But I have to say, it's also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I need all these superpowers, but how do I actually get them? Is everyone just going back to school?
Well, that's where the concept of lifelong learning comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about formal education.
Gotcha.
Although, your sources do talk about these alternative learning platforms like coding boot camps.
Right. Or like those online courses.
Exactly. And even companies creating their own internal universities.
I saw that in one of the articles, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the learning never really stops.
So it's about cultivating this mindset
Mhm.
of always wanting to learn new things, looking for those opportunities to challenge yourself.
Exactly. And it's not just about technical skills. It's about honing those soft skills, too.
So it's not just what, it's how you learn and adapt.
Right.
That's a pretty big shift from that old get a degree and you're set for life mentality.
It is a shift, but it's also incredibly empowering because
Yeah.
it means your future is not predetermined.
Okay.
You can actually shape it.
I like that.
It's about taking ownership of your own development and being open to new possibilities.
I'm starting to see the appeal of this lifelong learning thing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
But all this talk about upskilling and adapting makes me wonder, what does this actually look like in the real world? How is the way we work itself changing?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it brings us to another big theme in your research about the changing face of work.
Right. I mean, the sources mention remote work,
Yeah.
the gig economy, this hybrid model.
Mm.
It seems like the traditional 9-to-5 office job is going the way of the dinosaurs.
It's definitely evolving.
Yeah.
And while some of these trends were already happening,
Right.
the pandemic really just accelerated things.
It was like a forced experiment in remote work.
Exactly.
And a lot of companies seem to be embracing the change, at least to some degree.
Absolutely. The sources point out that
Yeah.
while some companies want everyone back in the office,
Okay.
many are adopting, more flexible arrangements.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Like that hybrid model where
I mean,
people
sure.
come in some days, work from home on others. That
Yeah.
seems to be getting a lot of traction.
That makes sense. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You get the flexibility of working from home, but also the benefits of being with your colleagues sometimes.
Exactly.
But not everyone's thrilled about this whole shift, right? Some people really miss the social interaction of the office. And then there are concerns about the digital divide and how it might actually worsen inequality.
Those are really valid points. You're right.
Yeah.
Not everyone has, equal access to technology or good internet.
Right.
And some jobs just can't be done remotely.
Okay, so while all these changes are opening up some cool opportunities for some, we also have to make sure everyone has a chance to benefit.
Absolutely.
Speaking of making sure things are fair, one article highlighted the role of leadership in all of this.
Oh, yeah, that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
The sources really emphasize that leadership has to adapt too.
So what does good leadership look like with all this change happening?
Well, for one thing, your sources talk about creating inclusive work environments
Okay.
where everyone feels valued and supported no matter where they're working from or what their background is.
That makes sense, especially if you've got a team that's spread out all over the world.
Exactly. It's about building a sense of belonging, even if you're not physically together.
So it's not just about location, it's about fostering diversity and inclusion in all its forms.
Exactly.
Okay, creating a sense of belonging even across time zones. Got it.
Yeah.
But there was also something about transformational leadership. What is that exactly?
So transformational leadership is about inspiring and motivating your team to embrace change, to strive for excellence, and it's about leading by example.
So less about giving orders and more about creating a shared vision.
Exactly. And empowering your team to achieve that vision.
Gotcha.
And recognizing that,
Yeah.
in this world that's always changing, the best leaders are the ones who can adapt and learn and grow right alongside their teams.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah,
It's not just about our own skills and mindsets.
right.
It's also about creating the right environment at work and having leaders who can guide us through all this uncharted territory.
It's a collective effort. We're all in this together.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from AI to soft skills to leadership.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
But before we dive deeper into the challenges and opportunities, I'm curious, what stands out to you so far? What's resonating with your own experiences or aspirations?
That's a good question. And I think it's a good spot to take a quick break before we continue this deep dive.
Honestly, for me, it's that sense of urgency around being adaptable that's kind of exciting, but also a little bit like, oh, wow, things are really changing.
It's a real shift in mindset.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize that the future of work is less about climbing that traditional career ladder
Right.
and more about creating your own path, constantly learning, picking up new skills as you go.
So instead of a ladder, it's more like a jungle gym.
Ooh, I like that.
You're always moving, exploring different directions, figuring out what to climb next.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And the sources do offer some pretty practical advice on how to navigate that jungle gym.
Right.
One article from Harvard Business Review suggested thinking about your career as a portfolio of skills
Oh, interesting.
rather than just, a single job title.
I like that.
Yeah, so instead of saying I'm a marketing manager, it's more like I have skills in communication, strategy, data analysis.
Right, exactly.
Maybe
Yeah.
even some graphic design thrown in there.
And as the work landscape changes, you can adapt that portfolio, add new skills. Yeah.
Refine the ones you have to stay relevant.
Okay, so it's about being versatile, adaptable, always learning. But let's get real for a second.
Okay.
All this change, it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Right.
The sources did talk about some pretty big challenges that come with all this tech advancement.
Yeah, there are definitely some potential downsides.
So what are some of those, what are we up against here?
Well, one of the biggest concerns, and we touched on this a bit earlier,
Yeah.
is the digital divide.
Right. That not everyone has equal access to technology.
As technology becomes more and more integrated into work,
Yeah.
those who lack, reliable internet devices, digital skills, they risk being left behind.
One of the sources, a Brookings Institution report, I think it was,
Yeah, that's a good one.
talked about how this could actually worsen inequality,
Right.
especially for low-income communities in rural areas.
And it's not just about having the technology itself.
Right.
It's about the skills to use it effectively.
Okay.
As AI and automation take over more routine tasks.
Yeah.
So,
The demand for, higher level thinking, problem solving, digital fluency,
Yeah.
it's only going to increase.
so it's like a double whammy.
It is.
You need the tech and you need the skills to use it.
Yeah.
And if you're already starting from a disadvantage, that gap can feel pretty impossible to overcome.
That's exactly why your sources emphasize the need for policies and initiatives to address this.
Right, to make things more fair.
To create more equitable access to digital resources and training.
Okay, so digital divide, that's a big one.
Yeah.
What other challenges are we looking at here?
Well, job security is another major concern.
Right, because even with new jobs being created, it's not going to be a smooth transition for everyone.
No, some workers, especially in roles that are easily automated, they might face job displacement.
I can see why people are worried about that.
Yeah.
There was an article in The Atlantic that talked about how this anxiety is particularly high for older workers who might not have the time or resources to learn a whole new career.
It's a valid concern, and the sources suggest we need to be thinking about safety nets and support systems
Okay.
for those who might be displaced by automation.
Yeah, like what kind of things?
Things like retraining programs, income support,
Okay.
even the possibility of a universal basic income has been discussed.
So it's not all about, celebrating the cool new stuff,
It's not just about the shiny new toys.
but also making sure we're taking care of people who might be negatively impacted.
Right. It's about acknowledging those potential downsides and making sure there are systems in place to help.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential downsides, but let's switch gears for a minute.
Sure.
And talk about the opportunities, because amidst all this uncertainty, there's also a lot to be excited about, right?
Absolutely, there is.
What are some of the things that you're most optimistic about?
Well, one of the biggest opportunities, and we touched on this earlier, is the rise of remote work and all the flexibility that comes with it.
Right. One of the reports, I think it was from Global Workplace Analytics, predicted that by 2025, something like 70% of the workforce will be working remotely, at least part of the time.
Yeah, a huge shift.
That's a lot of people working from home.
It is, and it opens up so many possibilities.
Like what?
Well, for employees, it can mean better work-life balance.
Yeah.
The freedom to live wherever they want.
Yeah.
More control over their schedule.
And for companies, it can mean access to a bigger pool of talent.
Right.
Lower costs, maybe even higher productivity.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual companies and employees.
Right.
Your sources suggest that this shift to remote work could have broader societal benefits as well.
Like what?
Well, one article from Forbes argued that remote work could help revitalize rural
Oh,
communities,
interesting.
reduce traffic and pollution,
Yeah.
and create more equal access to jobs for people who live outside of big cities.
So it's not just about working from home in your pajamas. It's about potentially changing how we live and work as a society.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just one example of the opportunities that are emerging as the world of work evolves.
What other opportunities are you seeing?
Well, another exciting development is the rise of what's being called the passion economy.
A passion economy. What's that?
It's the idea that technology is making it easier for people to make money from their skills and passions
Okay.
in ways that weren't possible before.
So instead of working for the man, you can be your own boss and do what you love.
Right, exactly.
That's appealing to a lot of people.
It is. It is. And it's not just about creative pursuits either.
Okay.
Your sources highlight how people are using platforms like Etsy, Patreon, Substack
Right. Heard of those?
to share their knowledge and expertise in all sorts of fields.
So you could be like an expert in accounting, for example,
Right.
and offer your services directly to clients without needing to work for a big firm.
Exactly. It allows people to leverage their unique skills and interests in ways that might not be possible in a traditional job.
So it's not just about finding a job, it's about creating your own opportunities.
Right. It's really empowering.
Yeah, I like
It's
that.
one of the most exciting things about this changing world of work.
Okay, so remote work, passion economy, and I remember something in the sources about how technology is enabling greater collaboration and innovation.
Oh, absolutely. Your sources highlight how technology is breaking down barriers,
Yeah.
making it easier for people to connect and collaborate in ways that we never could before.
Is that kind of what we were talking about earlier with remote work and global talent pools?
That's part of it, but it's also about the tools and platforms
Okay.
that are helping people work together better no matter where they are.
Like what kind of things?
Well, think about project management software,
Yeah.
video conferencing, collaborative document editing. All these things are making it easier for teams to communicate, share ideas, work together seamlessly, even if they're in different time zones.
So it's like technology is creating this virtual office where everyone can be together even when they're not.
Exactly. And this increased connectivity is leading to a more global and collaborative approach to innovation.
Okay, so companies are tapping into these networks of experts and freelancers from all over the world
Right.
to develop new products and solutions.
Yeah, and it's leading to some really cool breakthroughs in fields like tech, medicine, sustainability.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
We've got technology, globalization, changing demographics, all creating challenges and opportunities.
It's complex.
And it's up to us to figure out how to navigate it all and create a future of work that works for everyone.
Well said. And one of your sources, a report from the World Economic Forum,
Okay.
highlighted the need for what they called stakeholder capitalism.
Stakeholder capitalism, what's that?
Yeah. It's the idea that businesses need to consider everyone who's impacted by their actions.
Right.
Not just shareholders, but employees, customers, suppliers, the communities they operate in.
So it's about moving away from just focusing on profit
Yeah.
and taking a more holistic approach.
Right. One that considers the well-being of all parties involved.
That makes sense. If we want a future of work that benefits everyone,
Yeah.
we have to think beyond just the bottom line.
Exactly. We need to consider the long-term impact of our actions on everyone.
And that includes thinking about the role of technology and how it can be used to make things more fair and sustainable.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a lot to process. I'm starting to think I need a whole degree in future of work studies just to keep up.
It is a lot, but you're doing a great job of synthesizing the key takeaways from your research.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And remember, the goal isn't to be an expert on every single aspect of this complex topic.
Yeah,
It's to develop a framework for understanding the trends and challenges
right. To make sense of it all.
and the opportunities that are shaping the future of work.
That makes me feel a bit better because at times it does feel like trying to drink from a fire hose.
I understand, but you're clearly engaged and curious.
Well, yeah, this stuff is fascinating.
And you're committed to staying ahead of the curve.
Okay, so we've explored the challenges, the opportunities, the bigger picture of how society is being impacted by all of this.
Right.
But let's bring it back down to the individual level for a moment.
Okay.
What practical advice do the sources offer for someone who wants to thrive in this new environment?
Well, I think we've already hit on some of the key themes.
Yeah,
Embrace lifelong learning, develop those crucial soft skills,
right.
be adaptable and resilient, be proactive in shaping your own career path.
Yeah.
But your sources also offer some more specific strategies.
Oh, like what?
Well, one article from Fast Company, I think,
Okay.
suggested building a personal learning network.
Personal learning network. What's that?
It's basically a group of people you can turn to for advice and support as you navigate your career.
So it's like having your own personal board of advisors for your work life.
Exactly. It could include mentors, colleagues, former classmates, industry experts,
Okay.
anyone who can offer valuable insights and perspectives.
That's a great idea, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
the importance of collaboration and networking.
Yeah, definitely.
What other practical advice did you come across?
Another suggestion was to experiment with different career paths.
Interesting.
Explore different options before committing to one specific direction.
So it's not so much about picking a lane and sticking with it.
Not necessarily. In today's world, it's more important to be open to new possibilities
Yeah.
and to try different things before making a long-term commitment.
So instead of a ladder, it's more like choose your own adventure book.
Right,
You
exactly.
can try different paths and see where they lead you.
And one of your sources, a book called Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World,
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that one.
actually argues that having a broad range of skills and experiences can be a real advantage.
So it's not just about being a specialist in one narrow field.
Not necessarily. It's more about having what they call a T-shaped skill set.
A T-shaped skill set. What's that?
So you have deep expertise in one area, but also a broad understanding of other fields
Okay.
and the ability to connect the dots between different disciplines.
That makes sense, being able to see the bigger picture.
Right. And in a world where everything is becoming more interconnected,
Yeah.
that ability is incredibly valuable.
So you're saying employers are looking for people who can think that way.
Yeah, T-shaped thinking is becoming more and more sought after.
Okay, so we've got building a personal learning network,
hmm
experimenting with different career paths, developing a T-shaped skill set, and was there something else?
One final suggestion was to focus on building a strong personal brand.
A personal brand. I thought that was just for like influencers and celebrities.
Not anymore. In today's digital world, everyone needs to be thinking about how they present themselves online
Okay.
and how they build their professional reputation.
So it's about having a good online presence that shows off your skills and experience?
Exactly. And it's not just about having a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
It's about engaging in online communities,
Okay.
sharing your knowledge, building relationships with people in your field.
So be visible, build your network,
Yeah.
show off your expertise.
Right.
That makes sense, but it also sounds like a lot of pressure.
I understand. And it's important to find a balance that works for you.
Yeah.
But the reality is that in today's job market,
Right?
having a strong personal brand can give you a real advantage.
Okay, so we've got a lot of advice here. Build a network, experiment, develop a T-shaped skill set, cultivate your brand.
It's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot to take in, but it's also kind of exciting.
It is. It's empowering.
It feels empowering.
Because remember, this isn't just about finding any old job. It's about creating a fulfilling career that you're passionate about.
So it's not just surviving, it's about thriving.
Exactly. And that's something we should all be aiming for.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges and opportunities of this evolving world of work, practical advice for navigating this new landscape. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back something you said earlier about technology not just being about automation and efficiency,
Right.
but also about unlocking human potential.
Yeah, that's a key point. One of your sources, a book called The Second Machine Age,
Okay.
argued that while technology can automate a lot of the tasks we do now, it's also creating new opportunities for us to do what we do best.
Yes.
Things like think creatively, solve complex problems, connect with each other on a deeper level.
So it's not robots versus humans.
It's not an us versus them situation.
It's about finding ways for humans and technology to work together to create a better future.
Exactly. That's where the real excitement is.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic now, but before we get too carried away, there's one final question I have for you, and it's a big one.
Okay, hit me with it.
What does all of this mean for the future of humanity?
Wow, that's a question that philosophers have been pondering for centuries.
I know, it's a big one.
There's no easy answer, but I think your sources offer some clues.
Okay.
One of the most common themes is that we're entering a time of unprecedented change and complexity.
Yeah, and that this change is driven by technology, globalization, all these forces reshaping the world.
Exactly. And this raises some deep questions
Yeah.
about the nature of work, the meaning of life, the role of technology in our lives.
So it's not just about what jobs we'll be doing.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It's about what it means to be human in a world that's increasingly shaped by technology.
Exactly. And I think it's a question that each of us needs to wrestle with on our own terms.
Okay, so no easy answer, but it's a question worth asking.
Absolutely. And I think your research has given you the tools to explore it further.
Well, I definitely feel more informed after this deep dive, maybe even a little bit wiser.
That's great to hear.
But before we go, there was one quote that really stuck with me, and I want to share with our listener.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's from a book called Thank You for Being Late by Thomas Friedman.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
He writes, "The future is coming at us faster and faster, and the only way to thrive is to learn to adapt and reinvent yourself constantly."
That's a great quote, and I think it sums up perfectly what we've been talking about today.
And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the future of work.
It's been a pleasure being here.
It's been fascinating, really thought-provoking.
Yeah, it has.
And to our listener, thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of ideas.
Looking forward to it.
It really is kind of mind-blowing to think about, just how much the world of work has already changed.
It is, yeah. And it seems like it's just going to keep accelerating.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from this whole conversation?
I think the most important takeaway is that the future of work isn't something that's just happening to us.
Oh, yeah?
It's something we're all, actively creating.
I love that. It's empowering to remember that we actually have a say in this.
It is, yeah. It gives us agency.
Even amidst all this disruption and uncertainty.
Exactly. And with that agency, comes responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
We need to be thoughtful about the choices we're making,
Okay.
both as individuals and as a society, as we shape this new world of work.
It's not just about, adapting to whatever comes our way.
Right.
It's about designing a future that actually aligns with our values and aspirations.
Absolutely. And your sources offer some really inspiring examples of, people and organizations doing just that.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, one article from The Guardian
Okay.
highlighted a company called Patagonia.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
They're really known for their commitment to the environment and ethical business practices.
Hmm.
And they've done some really innovative things like on-site childcare and paid sabbaticals so employees can pursue their passions.
That's amazing. It shows that you can be successful and still prioritize, your employees' well-being and the planet.
Yeah, it's a great example.
It is.
And it's not just about big companies either.
Right.
Your sources also talk about this growing movement of social entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah, using business to do good in the world.
Exactly. People using their skills and passion to tackle social and environmental problems in creative ways.
So it's not just about making money.
No.
It's
yeah.
about making a difference.
Right. And that really ties back to what we were discussing before about the passion economy.
Oh, yeah?
The idea that people are looking for work that's meaningful and fulfilling.
I think that's so important.
It is, and it's a trend I think we're going to see even more of in the coming years.
So we've got companies like Patagonia setting an example.
Yeah.
This rise of social entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
people searching for work that aligns with their values. It sounds like the future of work could be pretty awesome.
I think so. It's not just about survival, it's about thriving.
Exactly. And your sources actually have one final thought that I think is worth sharing with our listeners.
Okay, what is it?
It's the idea that the future of work is ultimately about human connection.
That's interesting. I can see how technology can sometimes make us feel isolated,
Yeah.
but it can also bring us together in ways we never imagined.
Right. And as AI takes over more of those routine tasks,
Mm-hmm.
it's those uniquely human skills that will become even more valuable.
Exactly. Things like empathy, communication, collaboration, creativity, all the things that make us human.
So in a way, technology is pushing us to be more human.
I love that. It's a beautiful way to put it.
And it suggests that, adapting to new technologies is just one part of it.
Yeah.
The bigger challenge is figuring out what it means to be human in a world that's so shaped by technology.
That's a great point.
So we've come full circle back to that question you asked earlier. What kind of future of work do we want to create?
That's the question we all need to be asking ourselves.
It is. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure being here.
It really has been an eye-opening and inspiring conversation.
Absolutely.
And to our listeners, thank you for diving in with us.
Right.
And keep exploring these ideas, stay curious, and never stop learning.
Couldn't agree more.
Because ultimately, the future is ours to create.